to people who were disgruntled, who didn't know what they wanted to do or make out of life, to people who are now, employers of labor, doing ministry, changing lives. So there's a joy, unexplainable joy that comes from seeing that. It's just like if you're a creative person, the joy for most creative is you see your work and then you're excited about it. You forget immediately all the pain and the struggle that, went through. That's why sometimes creative people don't really care about the money side. Maybe until now people are changing because they are more into the work. My work came out well.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the faithpod. This is the first official episode of this season. And on this episode, I have someone very special and dear to me. I have on the show with me today Pastor Sholaokodugha. Pastor Sholaokodugha is you can clap. Pastor Sholaokodugha is the senior global pastor of the new church, and he's also the founder of Creations Republic. Creations Republic is a marketing communications agency, and also worthy to mention that Pastor Shola is my pastor and my spiritual father. Welcome to the show, PS.
You're looking very good.
Thank you, sir.
So the first thing I have to do on this show is to
put me on the spot.
Put you on the spot.
I saw it coming.
Yeah, and I need to announce your bride price first.
Yes, sir.
That's
Go
the
ahead.
first thing. So anyone who doesn't have $1 billion should not even come close, So 1 billion up for grab. We're not selling her. Oh, it's not that we're selling her. It's just that there's a lot of investment that has gone. But thanks for having me.
Thank you so much, PS, for coming. Really means a lot to me. And you're my first official guest on this season.
Okay.
So I'm really glad. I mean, PS is a very busy person. So I know some of my senior pastors would cut off my neck like, why are you dragging PS? PS is busy. Why are you dragging PS? But yeah, thank you so much, sir.
Yeah, it's always fun to do this with you.
Thank
you.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah, let's do it.
So my first question, right, would be to get to know Mr. Shola first. I think you were in a meeting one day and one of your staff, I just heard Mr. Shola or Shola. I think they called you Shola and I'm like, who is that? People are calling PS Shola. Well, they're not church members. So yeah. So let's get to know the Mr. Shola before Pastor Sholaokodugha. How was life like before you became a pastor?
Okay, that's interesting. I wouldn't even say that much has changed from who I was then to who I am right now. I think I'm still the same person. I still wear my clothes. I still drink my drip. I still live my life. Yeah, I think. But I think now there's a little bit more commitment to people, to the work of the ministry. But I still drink my gari. I love gari. It's my favorite food. I love to hang out with my friends. I love to play my PlayStation 5. I still do all the things. So I wouldn't say much has changed. But yeah, when you said they called me at work. So I'm a pastor, yes, and I also run a business. And so when I'm talking to my clients don't know me as pastors. Well, some of them do, but a couple of them do not know me as pastor. And so we can't be on a Zoom call with a client maybe in Ghana or in Zimbabwe or London or in Nigeria itself. And you're saying, you're addressing me as Pastor Shola. I even, my colleagues at work, even my staffs, I told them not to call me pastor. You don't have to call me a pastor. I know I'm a pastor. I'm not really big on the titles. Most importantly is to do the work. Yeah. So yeah, but of course in this African culture, we also always have to have titles. But there's nothing wrong with the titles. I mean, people call me pastor and I embrace that. But I'm still just me doing my own thing,
Thank you, PS. But have you always wanted to be a pastor?
Never.
Never.
So
what was it you wanted to do, even for the kingdom?
I wanted to have money.
And so into the kingdom.
And just have kingdom financial. I know that's what many of you say you are going to do. It's a lie.
But now that you're a pastor, do you think that you left that life? Or
No.
maybe there are things that you'd have desired to do in life?
No, I still give to God. I still sow. And I'm blessed and God helps me. So
and you still told the word.
I still tour the world.
You travel a lot.
Where did I tour the world?
PS, you travel a lot.
No, but I think I still do the things that God has put in my heart. So I wanted to be a business owner. I feel like I knew I was called to the ministry, but not to pastor a church, not to have a local assembly. But I knew I was called to the ministry. So I felt I was going to have money. I was going to travel the world, preaching the gospel and telling people how God helped me to have this much money. But not necessarily sit in a local place, in a local church and say, I'm the pastor of this church. So I think that was the dilemma for me before I eventually accepted to be a pastor.
Okay, so you didn't want to be a pastor, but there was a point in your life where you were serving Dr. K.
Yeah.
So did you not think you were setting up yourself up to be a pastor?
I didn't even see it as that then.
What did you think the end game was going to be for
like you now that you're serving with me?
Sir.
So you see yourself. So you two now, what do you think is going? What really? You're asking me that question. So you two, what do you think is going to be the end game?
One day I'll just say that PS, I want to move on to another industry.
Same thing I did too now, and I moved on.
But you did not move on. You moved on to pastoring.
I was moving on. I was doing my marketing comms.
Oh yeah, that's true.
And I became a pastor. And you two, you're doing marketing comms as well.
Yeah, and I will not become a pastor.
Okay, let's see.
Thank you, sir. So, speaking of marketing comms, right? I would like to know how you manage that dynamics of your marketing comms. It's not like you're called to doing comms for churches. That's not what you do. You actually work with like people. I don't want to use the word secular, but are there clients that you just turn down? Maybe alcohol brands, and you're like, I'm a pastor, I can't work with you, or things like that.
Yeah, I mean, we've had a couple of those brands that has, come to us. The other time, there's this brand, I don't want to mention names, and I knew the money was going to be very good if we won the account. The money was going to be very good, but something on my inside just said I couldn't be promoting that. So again, that's personal value. It doesn't mean that if you want to do that, there are different school of thoughts. People believe that, yes, if I do that, I can make money and give to the kingdom. Whatever school of thought is that. But I also know certain things I won't cross, right? I know certain things I won't cross. So, but again, doesn't mean that if that's what you feel like you should do. So I try as much as possible to have, everyone must have their own consecrations that, we have with God, that this is what God will have you do. And it shouldn't be a doctrine for others. Right. So there are certain things that is personal to me and I'm okay with that. So yes, there are certain brands that I might not be excited working with, yeah.
Do you think
But most brands I'm excited working with them.
Do you think that you took a risk becoming I don't want to use the word risk, becoming a pastor? Now, here's why I say that. 6 years ago, you became a pastor. 6 years ago, you got married. How can anyone wanting to get married next month, and that's when you're ordained as a pastor? How did you even think you were going to handle marriage, pastor? It was like at the same time. I mean, it could be your wedding anniversary today and the next. Which one comes first? I think pastoring.
Ordination came first.
So let's say today is your ordination anniversary. In a month is your wedding anniversary. How did you think you were even going to manage that? Was it ever a bother for you? Were you just like, let me take the risk?
Actually thinking about it right now, I was actually in the moment of time. Like, when all those things were happening, it wasn't real. It was just like, I was just going as it was coming. So there was ordination and then there was wedding. But the wedding came first. We'd been planning the wedding already. So the wedding wasn't like an afterthought. It was already in the pipeline. In fact, the ordination and ministry met us in the wedding. So we had already chosen the day of the wedding before all of the ministry and all of those things came to play. So it was just like, okay, we've chosen date already. We can't go back. Ordination has come.
You couldn't even go back.
So it was just, I think sometimes it's all the experiences you have in your life and some of the prayers you've prayed. That's why sometimes you never really look down on every of your investment in the things of the Spirit, because sometimes they add up to your belief, to your strengths to go ahead in some seasons like that. But looking back now, I'm thinking to myself that, oh boy,
it was
honestly, this one is like,
big decision. It was big.
Yeah, it was. Looking back now, it's like, how did you even do How did you do that?
Start a church,
Yeah.
get married. Because even for having kids, I know that a lot of people say, oh, the first year of your marriage, first 2 years, don't have kids. So that wasn't even it for you. It was you having 1,000 people.
Yeah.
It was you called to the nation, starting a church, which is like a big deal then, starting a marriage. But
Yeah.
well done. I mean, 6 years, you've done excellently
Maybe
well.
that's your story. That's why you're interested. Because when we're going to start this podcast, you told me that you wanted us to talk about being a pastor. And I didn't want to talk about being a pastor. I wanted to talk about football. So if you have any other podcasts that you can talk about any other thing like food, football, homosexuality, all those kind of conversations, I'm interested. This is my first podcast, by the way. First time I'm featuring in a podcast.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah, I don't really take podcast conversations because I don't want something I will say to be taken out of context. But I mean, Yuyu she likes purple. She's wearing purple. I should have worn a purple. I had this purple jacket.
Yeah, that's true. And the purple hoist that you have.
And I had this purple hoist I should have worn. Now you're giving hoist free advertising.
No, that's fair. Hoist is a family member.
Okay, let's do it.
So, going back to the marriage conversation, I'm going to ask your wife when she comes on the show how she reacted to it. But how did you even feel breaking the news to people? I know you've always mentioned that, your dad, growing up when you're reading Bible stuff, your dad will always want you that pastor, this one. So how was it even for you breaking it? Like, did you feel like, hey, how do I say it?
Even me, I was laughing at myself.
I'm supposed to be a pastor.
I was laughing at my own self. It wasn't real. I think the first thing, and this might help a lot of people watching, I think the first struggle I had was not as though I didn't think I was called to the ministry. We all have certain callings upon our lives. So I didn't think I didn't have that. I knew I had a calling upon my life. I think the biggest challenge for me was the title. I was stuck with the challenge of accepting the title of a pastor. To say, my name is Sholaokodugha, now it's going to be Pastor Sholaokodugha. And so that's why in the new, most of our pastors, we adopt PS,
BD,
PL,
PO,
so sometimes it's easy. So is it PS3, is it PS4, is it PS5, that kind of thing. And I think the moment I was able to take that weight away from myself, so I'll give an example. Sometimes if you look at the life of David, and I always use that to give an example, you see that he moved from a shepherd boy, and then he became the guy who was playing for Saul, the harp. And then he moved from there to kill Goliath. Then from there, he became the general of the army of Israel. Then became a prophet. Then became a king. So you see that sometimes life is progressive. And your calling also is progressive.
Yeah.
So if in this phase of my life, that's what God would have me to be, why not? So I'm not really fixated on how do I put it now? I'm not fixated on the call. I'm fixated on the anointings per time. So if in this season I have the anointing to be a pastor, why not? So it was difficult at first to merge all of those things together. But I mean, I just had the courage that that's what God would have me do. And I'm just going to do it. And I'm happy. It's one of the best decisions of my life. It has tough seasons. It has seasons where you look back and say, what is all this? Where am I? I will be somewhere now, maybe in Paraguay, traveling the world, making billions of dollars. But there's nothing more fulfilling than, change lives and seeing people move from one point and, transformation stories. Yeah, so it's been good.
Okay, thank you, Pierre. So there is...
But I'm not sure if I quite answered the question. You said, how did they feel?
Yes, their reaction.
Even me, I don't know how I felt. So when I started, I remember when I told my dad, my dad said, pastor, as at what? And a couple of people, I told Pastor PL then, he was like, well, it's you, Dr. K called, I don't know anything about. So I guess it was a mixed feeling for many people. And some people just trusted, okay, that's what you think God wants to do there. Let's see how it goes. Even me, it was a mixed feeling for me. So I can understand their sentiments, how they all felt.
But did you ever feel like, after 2 years, do I think I can do this? Do I think I can continue?
Yes. In fact, I think I clocked something in my mind. I'm like, I'm just going to do this for 2 years. Yeah. So it's surprising that you said 2 years, because I put that in my mind. I was like, okay, I'm just going to start this thing and it's over. Yeah, I
After
felt like
2
I could
years.
start things, but not necessarily sustain it for that long. I just start this thing and then hand this over for 2 years. After 2 years, but
Well, look
yeah,
at
we
you
are
now, preaching almost 4 sermons in a week.
That's a lot, but we are doing it.
Thank God. So
I need to also interview you, but let's
so
continue.
there was another question that came to my mind when you mentioned PL. So I looked at the leadership of the new and some of the pastors, right? These are people who were your friends. And I'm like, did these people know that one day they will all run a ministry together? Or was it when PS saw maybe PL, a pastor laddie, showed someone and said that, I like this laddie guy. One day will be a pastor. Did that ever come to your mind?
Nah, never. I think PL and I have come way back. So I met PL when we were 16 years old. I was 16. I started a group on campus, and I was leading a group of amazing young people at the age of 16, and that's where I met Pastor Laddie. So he's always been a follower of me from way back, dedicated, faithful, loyal to me. So the new was starting, it was in the system. I mean, it's inevitable to just be part of that. So these are people who believed in you even when there was nothing.
Yeah.
People who we're experiencing some things today. We're talking about traveling the world, going to the nations. We used to say those things.
But these are things you've talked about.
Like when we're on campus, we used to talk about thousands of young people around us. When we're on campus, we used to say those things jokingly. Sometimes from a place of when we pray, we'll say, this is what God is showing us. So yeah, I think he's always caught that with me. He's always seen something. Maybe you should interview him, then maybe we'll find more things to say. But yeah, I guess
sometimes too, when I think about the dynamic of your relationship, I'm like, how did he or other people like that go from calling you Shola to Pastor Shola, or from my guy to yes sir? Because that's what I see, and they just go from that to yes sir, and I'm like, one day I know myself, I'll just feel them and say Shola fa.
Well, I think there's a uniqueness of understanding. They respect me, and I do respect them as well. I mean, there are times where I call them when I need advice on something. I want to make a decision. I run it through by them. Say, what do you think about this? Sometimes it doesn't even have anything to do with ministry or church. Even things generally in my life. I say, hey, how far? What do you think? And we still hang out. We still spend time together. There's just that mutual honor and respect for each other. And he does respect me. He calls me his dad. But I still understand, I think relationships gets complicated if they are not understanding. And once you understand each other and you have matured to handle those relationships, I think the reason why a lot of people have issues in their relationships is because they don't have maturity and they don't understand the seasons and the times of those relationships and how to relate properly. So I think with us, we have that going, and I'm very grateful to God for that.
And it's very beautiful to see as well.
Really?
Yeah, it is. I mean, it makes me also look at the people that I have in my life, like my friends, and say, let's even assume, can pay one day, my life goes towards this direction. The people in my life right now, they're people that can also support me on this kind of journey. And are they just going to say, Iwo?
Yeah.
Iwo?
But I think it also largely speaks to security. Once you know who you are, you're not trying to be somebody else. You're not trying to be the guy. You're just okay to be who God wants you to be. And that's fine. Like I always say, if you don't care who takes the glory, we can do many mighty things for God. And that's the testimony of these guys, right? And I really love them. And I know they love me too.
Yeah. So there was something you had said before, that the greatest reward of pastoring is people. And the downfall is also people. And I'm like, okay, what does this mean? Like, these are the people. And is it that same people that will cause the downfall? So can you just explain that balance?
Yes. I mean, the greatest reward is people, because when you see the lives of people, I've met people in the new who joined the church from people who we used to support to give, 500 naira to take transport fare back home, to people who are giving millions right now in church. Who are blessings to people, who are setting up businesses and putting even other people on payroll in church, right? To people who were sick and now they are healed, to people who were disgruntled, who didn't know what they wanted to do or make out of life, to people who are now, employers of labor, doing ministry, changing lives. So there's a There's a joy, unexplainable joy that comes from seeing that. It's just like if you're a creative person, the joy for most creative is you see your work and then you're excited about it. You forget immediately all the pain and the struggle that went through. That's why sometimes creative people don't really care about the money side. Maybe until now people are changing because they are more into the work.
Yes.
My work came out well. It's almost the same thing like pastoring as well. It's the joy that comes with that. However, it also has its own side. When I say the joy is people and the downtime or the downside of it as well as people, is the betrayals that come from doing this work. Is the people talking bad sometimes, people not giving you opportunities for excuse. And so pastors were put in this high pedestal. The other day, I went somewhere with a couple of friends and we were, having pepper soup and we're just gisting. And it was even very far away. And someone came and said, so PS, you take pepper soup. I'm wondering, okay, am I supposed to be...
You're supposed to be drinking anointing.
Okay, maybe I should be drinking anointing oil or something. I'll be eating Holy Communion every day of my life. So it comes with that, sometimes it's just very funny. Sometimes you go out, you just want to relax with your family. And sometimes you have to think, okay, where can you go to that you likely not know anybody or somebody's doing a video of you somewhere and things like that. And then the other sides of, complaints, backbiting sometimes. So those things happen. And even the war that happens between pastors, even amongst ourselves in our own quote unquote pastoral industry, in the ministry, it's sometimes painful and hurtful. And then maybe people walking out of your life and the people you invest in the most, the people you pour yourself into the most, sometimes they walk out of your life and things like that. And that has its own struggle as well. But it's very rewarding. And at the same time, it's also but if I weigh it side by side, I think the reward is more, and you focus on that as opposed to the other sides of things.
Thank you for that response. So speaking of rewarding and pouring into, I feel like 80% of a pastor's time is about pouring into others. It's about praying for the church, interceding for others. People have prayer requests. So how do you now have time to put your own request before God?
I have my own time.
I
do. I sometimes when people say, how do you have family time? Honestly, I can't quite relate to that question because anything that is important to you, you schedule it. If it's important to you, if food is important to you, you schedule eating. You would eat. It's because there is no reaction going on in your body. If you're thirsty, you'll find water. You'll find it somewhere. If that thing truly matters to you, you'll find the time for it. So, for example, my wife and I, we from time to time we go out. In fact, there was a time just that sometimes we get very busy. Maybe I travel. There's a time when every Sunday evening we'll go out after church. We'll sit down somewhere. We have this nice restaurants where we just go to. They know us there. We have a place. We'll just sit down, eat, talk, go back home. Those things are, if it's important to you, your own life. And you see, ministry is also inside out. So if you don't have a good relationship with God, you can't pour into people. You'll be running on empty. So you have to create that time. Yes, it's quite overwhelming sometimes. Request here, request there. You want to forge the ministry ahead. There's more things to do. And if you know how God operates, the more you spend time with him, the more visions it shows you, right? So you just have to find the way to make it happen for you. So I think that's pretty much it.
Okay, so I'll see a pastor now and assume that their prayer life every time is rabas, kabash, and those heavy prayers. But there are times where the only thing you have the strength for is Our Father, thou art.
For the past 2 weeks now, that's the only way I've been praying.
Wow.
Yeah.
But you pray differently on Tuesday, though.
Yeah, because I had to lead the church in prayer.
Oh, okay.
That's my own personal prayer time with God. I can just say, God, help me. For the past 2 weeks, that's all I've been doing. I've not really... because I just don't have the strength, right, to be intense like I would. Because this season, I just need to soak everything in. I need to just ask God for strength. And God sees the purity of my heart. He just sees I'm not trying to be rakababa this season because I just don't have the strength. All I can do is God help me. And I have people in my life that I send messages to sometimes to say, just pray. I still did that this morning. Just pray for me. I need help. Pray for me. And help is not in a like something is happening to me. It's just lift me up in prayers. And I think that's one of the things we must get to as leaders, where we are open and vulnerable. Vulnerability is a strength. In Africa, we see it as a weakness, but look, it's a strength. And every leader must learn how to enhance that strength that comes with vulnerability. So for the past 2 weeks, I've just said, God, help me, have mercy, and do to me what you want.
I think I like that you mentioned that there are people you're close to and you send. Because my next question was going to be, so you pour into others who pour into you. So I think that I like that you mentioned that.
I think sometimes
already.
pastors don't have that. We don't have people, because the challenge with that, right, is that everybody that could be your friend now look up to you. And there's a challenge with that. Sometimes it keeps you in a place of isolation where you are probably alone. You no longer have friends and things like that. But you have to find a way to make people, by the Spirit, people who you can trust. So I adopt a father-friend model. So sometimes when people see me, the way I talk to you, or we relate, you think like we are G's. So that model works for me, where I can be a father and still be a friend, and where I can be a brother and still be a friend. And I think I've adopted that model quite well, and it's working for me. So I don't necessarily have to say, this is my friend, this is my friend. You can still call me your father or a friend, and I'm still your father. So, and that is working for me. So, yeah.
Can you share any experience, maybe any you can remember that has stuck with you in your years of doing ministry? Maybe something that changed everything for you. Maybe there was just one particular time where something happened, like, oh yeah, it just changed.
There are many experiences. If you can pinpoint what exactly you'd like to hear, is it how we started to do ministry differently, or is it something bad that happened?
No, good, no, positive.
Okay, something positive.
Direction, yeah.
I think it was when we did the First Next conference.
Okay.
Yeah, and God told me to go and get these big speakers, and I mean, at the time I didn't even have relationships, all of them, and I felt, how am I going to do it? And we started sending emails out. So different things, projects. Maybe we did the feast, big things like that. And, now we're looking for our properties at the church. So those are good moments where you just like, okay, let's do it.
Okay, final question, PS. If you were to choose something, any other career, any other thing to do, okay, pastoring is not a career, is it? Yeah. So if you were to choose something else, aside,
pastoring,
aeronautic
engineering, I'll be a pilot.
Really?
Yes, I'll be flying planes. My wife will sit beside me. I'll be going from Bahamas to New Zealand to Papua New Guinea.
But don't you think you can still do that though?
I won't. I don't have time.
Yeah, the time.
If I'm going from here to Australia,
who will pastor the church
preach the next day?
Yeah, that's
so.
True.
Yes, that would be exciting for me to do actually, and then I can drink my Gary on air.
Yeah, nice. I have one Gary plug out. I'll get it for you.
I thought you were going to even give me Gary on this set.
Wow,
that's what I
didn't think of that. I'll get it for you.
So those that want to invite me for their podcast,
Gary,
I think I'm going to start accepting podcasts now. People have been trying to get me on podcasts.
I think you should.
It's fun. I enjoyed this.
I think you should
podcast.
I think you should. So I said last question.
I have a question for you. So this podcast is not going to be over.
I will answer that, sir. So there are a lot of young people like me that maybe somewhere they just feel like there is a call of God somewhere. But I'm like, I see what PS does. I see his, I know his schedule. I know back-to-back meetings, church, even work. Do I think I want to dedicate my life to this kind of journey? I'd rather just support the church. I'd rather just, serve the church from my heart. But you see that ordination or that I want to be a pastor, I don't think I want to do it. So for people like that, what's that thing you'd say to them?
Good. Well, I think I was in that shoes as well before, but the challenge with that is you look so much at your strengths. You're looking too much into your own self, and you're thinking to yourself, I can't do it. You have to lean on the grace of God. You have to accept that if this is what God has called you to do, you have been empowered to do it. And that empowerment is not going to come upon you. It's already inside of you. Just enjoy and embrace it, because that's when you can fully live on the earth. If not, you would live, but you'll feel like there's something still missing. And you'll be looking for what is not missing. So if you are called to the ministry like that and you know it, embrace it, because it will bring you alive, unexplainable. It will bring that the newness inside of you. Now, you don't necessarily have to embrace with the titles. If your role requires that you should hold the titles, you have to, but just embrace it. The strength to do that is already inside it. I think that's what I would say.
Thank you so much, PS.
Thank you for having me.
I was going to wrap up the show.
You're not going to wrap up the show. So, when are you getting married, Yuyu? So when is you? Look at this beautiful, anointed, ministry-ready, career-driven, purpose-driven, young,
as
powerful.
It pleases the Lord.
That's not the answer.
That's the answer, sir.
Just to let you guys know, Yuyu is very much available. I hope.
I like that part. Last you checked, sir.
Yes, so
you need to check again.
So we need to check again. But now, if you love her, just send me a DM. It's very easy. We can make this happen. But just remember what I said when we podcast started, that the price is 1 billion. So you pay to my account straight and then.
So how much did I get from the 1 billion?
20K.
20K from 1 billion.
Yeah. All the
if you love me, if you want to marry me, come to my DM directly.
Can you see what money can do?
Come. Out of that 20 billion, I'll be righteous to pay my tithes to church. And, I could just buy you a gift.
How much will you give me?
20K.
You give me 20K.
The same 20K you wanted to give to me, I'll give it to you, sir. Thank you so much, PS, for coming on the show. This is my best episode yet. And even if I have more, I'm sure this is going to be my best episode. But I really appreciate it, sir. Thank you so much. And I'm really inspired by the work you do. I mean, it's been 6 years, but I know what goes on behind the scenes. I can see how much work you put into this ministry and even into the souls of people. I think there was something you did last week Sunday. And you called me again. And they were like, I think there were about 4 different people you told me to follow up with. And I'm thinking to myself, is this how every pastor looks through their church members and say, who is not around? And there are random people as well in church that just says, PS told me to call. And I'm like, how did PS meet you? Where did you meet PS? And I feel like I don't know what to call it, but you're doing a great work. And I'm deeply inspired by it. I don't want to be a pastor because of that, of course, but I'm deeply
everyone should just mark what she said today.
I'm deeply inspired by what you do, and I'm very inspired. Like, you're doing excellently well with the lives of the members and in this generation as well. Thank you so much, PS.
Thank you, Yuyu. Thanks for having me. I want to ask you one last question.
Okay.
Time is fast gone already, but I want to ask you a question. How did you join the new? I want to hear it.
Oh yes, that's interesting, because this morning I was just thinking about it. So I'd posted my friend Sholaokodugha, who is PS's younger sister. Then I'd put a caption that God bless the day I met you. And, I thought it was just one of those people you meet, you're hanging out, and out of course say, let's exchange numbers. So I thought that was going to be that kind of meet. I didn't think, I liked that vibe from that day. But this morning, I was now thinking to myself that everything connects back. I met Shola in 2018. I didn't join the new one until 2022. And I'm like, everything just connected. Like, and I was thinking to myself, what if I didn't meet this girl? Was I going to join the new? Maybe I would have joined one way or the other, but it just feels like the seed was sown years ago and it was just for me to reap now. So 2022, she had invited me to church a few times. I just said, come to our church. I'm like, don't worry, I will. But that day, I was going home from work and I saw that she had posted on her story, on her social media, there was a service. I think it was 1.0. She posted it. That's how they post. I mean, if you're in the new, or you see that's the culture. Post, invite people. So I got home that day. I couldn't sleep, and I'm like, what can I do? Movies. It wasn't clicking. So I was like, let me go back to this YouTube link that this girl had posted. So I checked. I worshipped. I'm like, oh, nice. Right there and there, I heard it was so clear in my spirit that that's your church, and I'm like, Kilele. I stopped it. The second day I woke up the next morning, it was still there. I went back to that video to watch. all week. It was like one full week. I think the 4th day after playing that service. If you tap me now, if you know it's playing now and I know the next song, that's how much I played, I know every song that's played, that they sang on, Anyways, cutting the long story short, I called her and I'm like, oh babe, this thing you posted on your status some days ago, that happened, and God told me to join the church. And she was like, hey, come on, So she told me to come that Sunday. Then I got to the church and I'm like, God, I'm here. But if you really, really want me to be here in this season, this pastor on the altar, it wasn't even you, it was Pastor Dayton. He should sing Seasons by Hillsong.
Really?
And Pastor Dayton got on the altar. I think I have the video. And he just started singing Seasons. I'm like, So that was how I joined the church. And, so I joined the church. I knew that. So I joined the church. I was still working at the time. I don't think I even really told people this part. I was still working at the time in a real estate company, right? Then I was just telling them that I have a feeling that one day I resign from this job and go into full-time ministry. Wow. Not as a pastor, but I feel like there is something I would have to do in church as a staff in church. So that went off. I resigned. I didn't even start working here until... When I say here, I work full-time with the new church, right? I'm a full-time staff on salary. They pay me monthly. So I didn't start working until 6 months after, because after I resigned, there was no church staff system.
Yeah.
But I was one of the first people they recruited to be one of the church staff. And later, everything just connects back to me later that you actually told people in your office that one day you will go into full-time ministry. I mean, I started working, I think I wasn't even a year yet in church when I started working in the new. When people see me in the new now saying hello to people, like, how long have you been in this church? And I'm like, I'm a new member like that. So, and you're like, that's interesting. So I feel like everything just connects.
Added together.
Yeah, everything just added together.
Powerful. Awesome.
Yeah. So that's it. Thank you so much, PS.
As sure as God helps us.
We will not give up, but I will not be a pastor. I will serve from my capacity. Thank you, everyone, for watching today's show. I hope you've been blessed by it. I've been extremely blessed by the show today. Thank you, and see you on another episode. I have a special guest for you coming up next. Can you guess who? You'd see her on the next episode. Oh, I just said that. Oops. But you'd see her on the next episode. To those guys. Bye.
Bye, guys.